Hey guys, in this video we're going to be going over the Pinnacle Encounters, which are the 4 new aspirational content added in Scourge League for the respective Blighted Maps, Domain at Timeless Conflict, Breachstones, and Simulacrum. So let's just hop right into it. We're going to first look at the Simulacrum. And this footage is going to be sped up at 10 times speed right up until wave 29, because everything goes pretty smoothly. There's nothing too interesting or notable to talk about in the first 28 waves. Wave 29, however, we end up getting the 2 mods that are probably the worst for us, which is very high chaos resistance coupled with extra monster life. So to tech for this, you just want to have as much minus chaos res as possible. So we already have the helmet suffix that's -9 to chaos res, or to enemy chaos res. Technically, you can get this to -12 if you Maven Orbit, but we haven't done that yet. And you can get -6 on the belt, which is the Wither enchant through Lab. And as you can see, I will be swapping off my Headhunter for a Stygian Vise, and that's because you can get an additional -2 on an Abyssal Jewel. Also, obviously, Despair gives us quite a bit of minus Chaos Res as well. Aside from that, you will notice when we were fighting Kosis on wave 29, he dies with 10% HP, even though we don't have Culling Strike on our gloves. That's because for the Ballista 6th link, I took off Efficacy, which is like the standard meta for Culling Strike support instead. So my Ballistas are culling these bosses, and that's just 10% like more damage for you. So if you don't have Culling Strike on your gloves, I would just do what I'm doing. Alright, so this wraps up the Wave 30 Simulacrum. It went pretty well. It went deathless, even though we had these nasty mods. So hopefully this serves as a little bit of inspiration for you guys struggling with Toxic Rain, because if you just keep pushing the skill further and further, it's just as good as any other. We can easily do this aspirational content. Alright, now moving on, we're going to be covering flawless breaches next. Now, I advise doing the rampage trick for flawless breaches because the speed helps, the damage helps, the effects also help. It's kind of tough to stay at the edge of the breach, but you do want to be keeping up with the edge of the breach, because if you don't, you will run out of time and you will fail. If you don't know the free rampage trick, I do have a video on my channel talking about that. Right here, as you can see, I'm not actually at the edge of the breach right here, so I'm sort of misplaying. I don't need to be sticking back for so long because the steal effect of Toxic Rain is, depending on your builds, probably between 2 and 3 seconds, which means your pods will keep doing damage for 3 seconds after you drop them. So you do not need to stick around and watch these trash mobs die. You can just drop your pods with the knowledge that they will die off screen behind you. As you can see, there is nice juicy explosions, and that's coming from the large cluster jewel we're using. You can find it in the POD. Sacrifice a bit of damage, but the explosions are worth it for most of these. Or just for just in general, if you're not strictly doing a boss, the explosions are probably better than the damage. Alright, so moving on, we're going to be covering Blight-Ravaged Maps next. So we're going to go about crafting the map first, putting on some red. The red oils give better rewards, and then the clear and the sepia just make it easier. So if you truly want to min-max the rewards, you wouldn't put on those clear and those sepia. You would put on even more combinations that give you better outcomes. But here we're just sort of finding a middle ground where there's good rewards, but it's also not too difficult. We're rolling the map. I vol it. It changes all the mods anyways. The reason you vol it is because corrupted, blighted maps have a chance at dropping tainted oils, which sell for a lot. So I would advise corrupting them if you can. Now the strategy we're going to be using here is we're going to be using Empower Increased Range on one of our rings, and to get this you use a Verdant and a black oil. And then on the other ring we're going to do Empower Tower Increased Effect, which is a sepia, then azure oil. So the strat involves we level the Empower Towers to level 3, and then you just look at the immunities on the monsters coming in, and if there's a lot of cold immunity, then you'll put level 3 seismic towers, and if there's a lot of the fizz immunity, or whatever the seismic one's called, you would just put a lot of level 3 of the ice towers. And as you can see here, there's a little bit of immunity to both, so we would be ideally putting down some seismic and some ice. Remember, all of these are level 3 towers. The only towers you would potentially level to 4 would be your damage towers. And in this particular map, you can see there's no enemies that are immune to fire. So I end up building some level 4 meteor towers. So we're watching this at 2x speed just to make the video a bit more condensed. I think at some point I do let a boss through, but we still succeed in this encounter. I probably wasn't placing my towers too strategically. I wasn't really putting too much thought into it. That probably comes with practice. I don't really do too many blighted maps. Anyways. Alright, so now moving on, we're going to be covering the last Pinnacle Encounter, which is the Relentless Domain of Timeless Conflict. So here I'm using 4 of the Relentless emblems. I kind of wish I did 5, because if you use 5, it gives you a little bit more time in here. We might have gotten some better rewards. But it is what it is. The challenge only asked for 4, so I just ended up using 4. It didn't feel too hard, but then again, I am doing it 1 player, and as Toxic Rain, I would highly suggest doing it 1 player. If you have a friend in there resetting for you, you don't really save too much time. Like it's pretty fast to reset for yourself, and the monsters have much less HP if you're doing it by yourself. So definitely, like, don't bring a leech along. It's gonna hurt your rewards. It's not worth it. Again, we're using a Rampage here, and we're using the Explode Cluster Jewel. Alright, so this about wraps up our video. We've covered the 4 Pinnacle Encounters. I would say the Domain of Timeless Conflict is the easiest, although I didn't try it at 5, it might not be the easiest if I tried it at 5. The Blighted Maps is also pretty easy if you follow the strategy I laid out. Flawless Breachstones, you kind of need a lot of damage to do that. So it didn't look too hard in my video, but I assure you, if you don't have like the 16 million or whatever I'm running right now, it's not going to feel too comfortable, and you might just lag behind and fail it. Alright, well, if you want more videos like this, don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.